Every lie comes from greed. Do you agree with that? I've seen it up close, front row, popcorn in hand, live in it instead of watching from the cheap seats. And if you want a real-life lesson in how greed warps the truth, let me tell you about the time a so-called pillar of the community tried to steal the land my father built with his bare hands. Yeah, that happened. Her name was Karen, because of course it was. And she showed up in my kitchen flanked by police, waving around fake authority like it was her birthright, telling me the homeowners association had a claim to my cabin. She thought she could rattle me with uniforms and paperwork, but let me back up a sec. I'm Adrian Cole, 65, stubborn as a Missouri mule, and I never thought I'd spend my golden years fighting for a piece of dirt my family already paid for twice over. My dad, Henry, bought this spot in 1965, back when deals were sealed with a handshake and a promise, and Pine Lake was just a quiet stretch of water in the middle of nowhere. Now McMansions line the shore, every yard lit up like a landing strip, but our cabin hand-cut beams, real stone fireplace, not a straight wall in the place, stood as a reminder of simpler times. Dad always said this was his promise to the future, and when he passed, I came back to finish what he started. But all that history meant nothing to Karen Blackstone, president of the HOA, and self-appointed guardian of community values. The trouble started early one November morning with a cup of coffee and a new sign planted on my property historic public trail. Never seen the group listed on the sign, never gave permission for anyone to come tromping across my yard. And it only took a couple hours before Karen showed up at my door, looking like she stepped off the cover of a real estate brochure, hair that didn't move and a hurricane smile that never touched her eyes. She was all business, telling me that recent research had revealed my land was on a Pony Express trail, and technically it was always meant to be public. It's not personal, she said, but you could tell by the way she looked at me I was a problem. She wanted gone. She never produced a single real document, just a lot of talk about paperwork being processed. The real courtesy I'd learned was her campaign of harassment, HOA violation notices, complaints about my porch lights, my non-conforming landscaping, and even the cabin itself. Funny thing was, the place stood long before the HOA even existed. But see, Dad was a careful man. Every receipt, every scrap of land paperwork tucked away in an old wooden chest under the porch. When Karen came back waving her fake research in front of my neighbors, I dropped that red-sealed deed on the table. You could almost hear her confidence shatter. It got better. Under the deed, I found a hand-drawn map from the 1800s, ink-faded lines showing the Pony Express route, and a note in beautiful old script. If anyone questions ownership, reference the federal land grant exemption for private mail stations. Yeah, I'd say that's what you call a smoking gun. But Karen wasn't giving up. She called an emergency HOA meeting, dressed up the community center like a courtroom flag on the table, gavel in hand. She put on a show for the neighbors about historical preservation, painting me as a roadblock to community progress. When I stood up and asked how a group formed in 1995 could claim land my dad bought in '65, you could see folks doing the math. She tried to brush it off. Sometimes sacrifice is needed for the greater good, she said, but the cracks were showing. Then came the media blitz. Front page of the local paper accused me of hiding priceless artifacts from the public. Karen did interviews on the radio talking about preserving history, painting me as some greedy hermit with nothing but time and money. The story spread online, hashtag Save Pony Express History. People driving by to take photos calling me a traitor to American heritage. I'll tell you, it wears on a man. But here's the twist. One night, Sam Rodriguez, quiet neighbor, slips me a note. Call me after 9. Not the landline. We meet at dawn at the old fishing pier. Sam brings a leather satchel. His grandfather was the last station master at Pine Creek. The documents inside prove our cabin is built on the original Pony Express station, and more special federal contract, perpetual private ownership, immunity from local seizure. Even better, there's a letter from the U.S. Postal Service 1965 confirming the transfer to my dad. Turns out Karen had tried to bribe Sam 20 grand to stay quiet. When he refused, she threatened his house with code violations. Now you might be thinking this is too wild. It gets better. I call a lawyer and my daughter Lily, law student and family bulldog, drives up with 2 boxes of case law and a fire in her eyes. She starts digging and finds out Karen's working with a company called Western Heritage Productions. They create historical experiences for TV, and their business model is to buy up real sites, tear down the old buildings, and build sets that look good on camera. Karen's been on their payroll for months, targeting our property as the centerpiece for a Discovery Channel series. That's right, my cabin destined to be bulldozed so Hollywood could film a fake Pony Express drama. And if you're wondering how deep the rabbit hole goes, Lily finds evidence that Western Heritage has pulled this trick 3 times before in other states, always using fake preservation claims and local media manipulation to force out owners. The private heritage fund Karen talked about shell company. The expert, she quoted phantom names. They'd even planned a neighborhood festival, cameras and all, to unveil their big announcement. Sunday morning comes, the community center's packed Discovery Channel cameras, rolling neighbors dressed up like they're in a Wild West parade. Karen gives her speech dripping with false sincerity. She introduces the TV producer who starts pitching the network's new show. That's when I stand up, open the old chest, and lay out the federal land grant documents in front of everyone. Here's the truth, I say. Not just a family deed, federal mail station protection signed and sealed. Karen tries to bluff, but then Sam stands up. Karen, you tried to buy my silence? The room goes silent. Lily pulls up the Western Heritage Bank record showing Karen's monthly payments. The Discovery Channel guy's jaw drops. Neighbors turn angry. Tom and Susan Mitchell. Once Karen's biggest cheerleaders, now leading the chorus. You lied to us. The whole thing unravels in real time. Truth beats TV drama every time. Karen's face never seen a more spectacular meltdown. She's outed her HOA, dissolved the scam, exposed. Western Heritage gets hit with federal charges for fraud. Turns out they were taking tax breaks for preserving sites they were actually destroying. Sam's elected as the new neighborhood coordinator, and we scrap the HOA for good. My cabin gets listed as an official historical landmark. School kids come by for tours, neighbors meet on the porch to share real stories, and nobody's policing anybody's grass or mailbox color anymore. But here's what stuck with me most. When the dust settled and Karen was facing a world of legal trouble, the community pulled together like I hadn't seen in decades. Folks I'd barely spoken to became friends, allies. My daughter Lily deferred law school to help with the federal investigation. They found this scam was happening all over the country, not just here. And sitting on the porch, coffee in hand, looking out at the lake, I realized, yeah, greed creates lies. But the only thing that ever beats it is truth, backed by courage, love, and a stubborn refusal to let bullies win. My dad's promise for the future didn't just survive, it grew stronger. Now every Sunday, neighbors gather to share real history, not manufactured drama. The cabin's still standing, and so is the truth. So let me ask you, what would you do if someone tried to rewrite your history for a quick buck? Ever tangled with a Karen or a crooked HOA? Drop your story down in the comments, because I guarantee you're not alone. Hit that like button if this story gave you a little hope, and stick around, because as long as there are people willing to fight for what's right, there's always another chapter to write. You know what I mean?